Greetings. More thoughts on the prophet Habakkuk. We have come to the last chapter, chapter 3, which is basically a prayer which Habakkuk offers. And in this prayer, we see Habakkuk coming to a more of a complete understanding of God. And it's a very helpful prayer for us to take a look at. You will remember that Habakkuk had struggled with the fact that as he looked around in his world, he saw a lot of sin, a lot of disobedience to God, and he wanted God to do something about that. And God's answer was not what Habakkuk had expected. God's answer was to bring destruction upon the land, in which not only sin would be punished, but everyone would be affected by that. And Habakkuk struggled with that. He didn't really understand it. But ultimately he came to the point and said, okay, God, I will wait. I will see what you're going to do. And in that sense, then, when we get to this final chapter, Habakkuk speaks to God as a God, actually presenting him to us in something of a physical manifestation. That God is a God who is absolutely sovereign, but he is also a God of great wrath and judgment. A God who can bring horrible judgment upon the land, upon the whole creation in a sense. And yet Habakkuk presents God in that way with an ultimate sense that in his judgment and in his sovereign control, his ultimate goal is always his plan of salvation. That is, that God has in eternity determined to save a people. And even though sin brings great effect upon this world, Satan's plan for this world will not stop God's plan. So even as he strikes out with his wrath and with his judgment, there's always the overall goal that God has in mind, and he brings about every detail of our lives and of everything that happens in the world for this ultimate goal to fulfillment. Not only as we see in Scripture, that Christ is presented in the Old Testament and is fulfilled, comes and fulfills his work in the New Testament, but now throughout the history of the church. The goal is always the salvation of his people. And so even as Habakkuk presents God here in terms of something of a physical manifestation of total and complete judgment upon this earth, it is a reminder that God is the sovereign God. The point is that when we come, as Habakkuk did through his own experience, as we come to a fuller understanding of who God really is and how he works, what I like about the book of Habakkuk is that essentially he reminds us of us. We struggle with the things we see around just as Habakkuk did. We struggle with the things that happen to us, to basically good people. Why do we suffer as well? Habakkuk struggled with that. So it's a great lesson. And the lesson is this, ultimately. While yes, we need to remain strong in our faith, we need to work as God's people, we need to do whatever is important and proper for us in terms of our own little world to advance the kingdom of Christ. But then we say in the midst of that, okay, God, you are in charge. I'm going to wait. I'm going to see what your plans are, and I'm going to wait upon you. And so God is all powerful. The enemy will not win. That's the theme of really the whole book. And Habakkuk in this last chapter, which is really a prayer to God, the first part of the prayer is Habakkuk demonstrates how he has come to see. And I think that's the lesson for all of us. God is in charge. He knows what he's doing. He has an ultimate goal. The enemy will not win, and we will wait. So wait on the Lord, but be strong in your faith.